everyone. My name is Denise LeBlanc, and I'm the Executive Director here at Fuller Craft Museum, sitting in for Beth McLaughlin, our Chief Curator today. I'd like to welcome everyone to Collection Spotlight. Thank you all for joining us. I'm here today with two extraordinary furniture makers, SIlas Kopf and Jay Stanger. They're also great friends, and I'm delighted to welcome them for what I'm sure will be a lively conversation. As part of Fuller Craft Museum's virtual programming, we offer Collection Spotlight on the second Wednesday of each month as a way to provide increased access to the objects in our permanent collection, to offer insights about the talented artists who created them, and to stimulate new ways at looking at museum collections. In a few minutes, I'll introduce Jay and SIlas, and then we'll get to hear from them individually about their careers and their works in our collection. And then we'll have a chat before opening it up to Q&A. So please put any questions you have in the chat function for a little later on. I also want to note that we are recording this program for later viewing. Our mission at Fuller Craft is to provide meaningful discovery of contemporary craft through exhibitions, collections, education, and public programs. We're committed to challenging perceptions and building appreciation of the material world. Our purpose is to inspire, stimulate, and enrich an ever-expanding community. If you're interested in learning more about our collection, exhibitions, other upcoming virtual events, or becoming a member, please visit us at fullercraft.org. Our permanent collection is comprised of over 800 objects in craft media: metal, glass, wood, fiber, clay, and other materials. It is ever changing, and with new additions made every year. And I'd like to thank all the artists and the donors who have helped us build the collection over the years, along with staff, collection committee members, and our board of trustees. I'd also like to recognize the Mass Cultural Council and our local cultural councils for supporting the Collection Spotlight program. Lastly, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today, especially our board members, museum educators, and staff who are on the call with us. Now let's turn our attention to our featured guests. SIlas Kopf will be presenting first, and I'll share his bio before inviting him to take our virtual podium. SIlas Kopf has been making studio furniture since 1973. Following his graduation from Princeton University, he apprenticed with Wendell Castle for 2 years. As the 1988 recipient of a Craftsman's Fellowship from the National Endowment for the Arts, he studied traditional marquetry methods at the École Boulay in Paris with Pierre Ramon, and later studied marquetry and inlay in Italy, England, and Sweden, expanding his understanding of the European marquetry history of decorative arts. SIlas was named a Master of the Medium for 2015 by the James Renwick Alliance of the Smithsonian Institution. Currently based out of East Hampton, Massachusetts, SIlas incorporates a wide variety of techniques to decorate the furniture he both designs and builds. The standards are exacting, and every attempt is made to build work of the highest caliber, creating work that is sought after by collectors. His work is found in museums and private collections around the world, including Fuller Craft Museum, and we are proud to have his tour de force aquarium in our permanent collection. I'm thrilled to have him here today. Welcome, SIlas, and thank you for being here. I'm going to share my screen so that SIlas can speak about some of the objects that he has worked on. SIlas? So tell us a little bit about these pieces.
Okay, good. So this is the type of work that I do, and this is the piece that's actually at the Fuller Museum. It's a blanket chest, looking like it has an octopus inside with a bunch of fish, and I'm really intrigued by octopuses. They're an incredible creature, brainy and clever, and And I like the graphic of them. I like the suckers on the tentacles, and I thought, well, that was going to be a challenge to do in marquetry. The other thing that I've done on this piece is to use some of those bright colors, the green of that fish, the blue and the yellow, the orange and the clownfish. That is a reconstituted stone where the stone, the semi-precious stones get ground up into a powder and then glued back together with an acrylic. And what that allows is for me to work it with woodworking saws, as opposed to the hard saw or the hard tools that would be necessary to cut the original stone. But it's, I like working with the material. It's a nice, bright, cheery note to add to the furniture piece. In this particular case, there is a secret drawer on the side that is visible to all you and I. Jeffrey, I can't remember Jeffrey's last name now, but Jeffrey said, oh, we have to put something in that drawer. And it was a note to Jonathan Fairbanks, who was for so long an important part of the Fuller Museum. And so the note says, Jonathan Fairbanks, the octopus is a crafty one, and you have to remember to lock the lid at night because there he is escaping out through. So the handle for the blanket chest, a sweater chest, is a carved tentacle. So I use the same wood that I use in the octopus itself, which was mostly satin wood.
Wonderful.
So let's move on to another one. So my original work in marquetry was inspired by French Art Nouveau work that was done around 1900. And the best work I thought was done in the eastern part of France in Lorraine. And so I was inspired by Émile Gallet, that's a name that some of you might know, and Louis Majorelle. So I started doing pieces with floral patterns on them. And originally, the number of pieces of wood that went into any given flower or piece of fruit or whatever was pretty modest. Then I started to get more involved and more complex, more painterly. And so here's an example of that. This is called Hadley Chess because Hadley is the neighboring town to where I live. And there is a famous piece of American colonial furniture that was made in Hadley or here in the Connecticut Valley. And it was often a lifting lid and drawers underneath, and the decoration on it would typically be chip carving, as would have been the case, in say the 1680s or 1690s, something like that. I thought I could update that and make it a marquetry decorative piece. So I've got the same format with the drawers down below, the lifting top, but with the marquetry running on the three sides. And I'm just noting here, the background to this is a really sterling piece of Brazilian rosewood. It's so rich and gorgeous, and makes the apples and the flowers jump out on it.
Well, I love your take on that, SIlas. I'm familiar with the 17th century Hadley chess, so I love to see this in response to that.
Yeah, thank you.
It's really wonderful. Great.
So in the mid-1980s, I got to make a trip to Italy. And one of the things that the Italians did with marquetry in the Renaissance was trompe-l'oeil pieces, fool the eye, making it look like cupboards were open and you could see the objects inside. So I've been doing these for years, making it look like there's an open door, but there is a door there, but it's not open. So what the trapezoidal shape of that door is in fact in a pocket tucked into the front of the cabinet. So I've enhanced the illusion by making shadows run down over the furniture piece across the stand, etc., and then including the cast shadow on the inside of the cabinet. And one of the things that I'm particularly proud of here was the ability to simulate glass to make it look like glass there. And that's just a lot of really thin, small pieces of wood put together, but I've enhanced it by making it lens-like. So if you look at that glass on the right, the shadow on the back wall then is bent as if it's being maneuvered by the glass itself. And I've got cigars in there. There's some interesting woods that I use to simulate these things. So the end of the cigar is palm wood, which is a series of little dots. And I thought it looked kind of like the end of, tobacco sticking out of the end of a cigar.
It's a wonderful painterly quality to the whole thing. It's just lovely.
Thank you.
Oh, this is great.
And for years, I've been doing portrait pieces. At some point, I thought, okay, I'll do one a year, and then someday somebody will have the nerve to bring them all back together. And the title of the exhibit will be Grayer, Balder, and Fatter. So this was done in about 1990, so about 30 years ago, when not only did I have hair, but it was dark. So this is, again, an illusionary piece with it's a life-size cabinet with 2 doors in it. So if you look carefully, you might be able to see the crack around the upper and lower doors. I had this beautiful Indonesian Nara wood that had that brick color and also had the variation in it. It was sometimes kind of straw colored, sometimes a little redder, and I thought it was going to work well for the brick. So to build this piece, I constructed a plywood box and cut out that part and then stood behind it and manipulated it in the sunlight until I got the shadows cast across me in a way that I liked, and then had my wife take a photograph of that. So then I worked from the black and white image to make the full-scale drawing, and here we are. Bricolage. Bricolage is the French word for handyman work. So instead of doing woodworking, I'm acting as a mason here.
Wonderful.
Here's another portrait piece. This is my father, and again, I took a photograph of him and didn't tell him what I was going to do with it. So it's a full-size image of him. And what I did was take a mirror of that rectangle and I scraped the silver off the back of the glass and then sandwiched the marquetry and the mirror glass together in the frame. So it looks like the wood is actually inlaid into the silver. So where you see the white inside the frame, that's actually silver, and the photographer had to put a white backdrop up so it didn't reflect the photography studio.
Wow, what did he think of it when he received it?
Well, he wasn't a super effusive man, but I think he was pretty proud that his son could do that, and pleased that that I wanted to incorporate him in a piece of my furniture.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
I was going to sell it, and then I chickened out and gave it to my parents.
Oh, well, sounds like a good place for it.
Yeah, it is. I can't even remember when the date was. It was, at any rate, I got the chance to go to Paris and study traditional marquetry techniques. And one thing that the French could do is to make the same motif over and over and over again. So when I got home, I built the tool to be able to cut the marquetry to do that, and made, in this case, there's 120 fish, and they were done in stacks so that they were like cookie cutter, put them all together, but then I cut them into the background individually the way that I normally cut the marquetry. So I had the fish made up as units and then laid them onto this elliptical desk there, swimming around and up over the knee hole. So each fish, I think, has about 15 parts to it.
Wow. Amazing.
And Steinway has commissioned me to make a bunch of 5 different cases for their pianos. This was the first one that I did. And the marquetry image is back to floral again here, the comfortability with making flowers. So I made up a long frieze, 15 feet long, and took it down to the factory in New York. They glued it onto a rim. When it was cured and ready, they sent it up to me here in Massachusetts, and then I constructed the rest of the parts, the legs, the foot pedal, gizmo, and so on, sent it back to them, and then they mounted the instrument in it.
Wow. It's beautiful.
And this is an old technique called oyster shell work. And what's done here is to take a limb of a tree that has a contrast between heartwood and sapwood and slice it up like a loaf of bread into veneers. And at that point, it's used just like other veneers and put together in marquetry work. So what I like about it is that you can see the growth of the tree. Like if you looked at that detail of the drawer, you can see the knot running through it as it runs through the length of the limb. And I just thought that was really cool. I've done this a number of times. I've made tables with this, but this was my favorite piece. I liked it was a Purple Heart background, and I thought it worked nicely with that creamy color. The oysters themselves are walnut, and so it has to have that heartwood sapwood contrast. So the sapwood of the walnut is kind of that creamy color.
It's beautiful. Oh, fun.
And here is a piece called Bad Hair Day, and another elliptical piece here where the fox is being chased by rabbits. And this was sort of born out of my work on the piano, where you couldn't see all the parts of the piano or all the marquetry of the piano in one spot. You had to walk around it, and I really liked that. So I thought I'd build a piece of furniture that forced you to do the same thing. So if you wanted, there's actually another rabbit around the left-hand side there, and you can't see the fox if you're looking at the rabbits, or at least you can't see the fox's head. So, and I like the background wood in this is a Macassar ebony, so it's nice and stripy, and it sort of sets up a rhythm of movement as the fox and the rabbits are running. And I did a second piece that was sort of like this. When I get done with something, I like to look at it and say, what would I do differently if I had a chance? And I got done with this and I said, well, it actually isn't clear who's winning this race. Maybe the fox is just far behind the rabbits. And so I said, okay, if I were to do this again, I'd have the fox looking back over his shoulder and as if he's being pursued. And so I did that, but had not rabbits, but chickens after him. And the title of that one was Who's Chicken Now?
Excellent.
Here's use of other materials. The fins on these goldfish are done with mother of pearl, and it's such a gorgeous material. I enjoy working with it. It's hard, literally hard, but it's so pretty. So this is a sideboard there with the ebony background, so that the pearl jumps out significantly on that. And lately, I've been making pieces with secret compartments in them. They're kind of fun to engineer, as if you have to get into one part to get into the other. So it's like a sequential puzzle. And so in this, I can't even remember where you started. I know you have to open the door first. And you have to find the key, which is hidden within the piece of furniture. And then you can eventually unfold the whole thing to make all of this happen. I think there's like 15 or 16 steps to get through it all.
Wow.
And I think that's my program.
I think it is. Thank you so much, SIlas. You know, what really strikes me is your expanse of choices of subject matter. So you have lots of nature, organic patterns, you have portraiture, and I'm curious to know what you like to do best. Do you have a favorite?
You know, it's an interesting thing. So when I think about doing a piece of furniture, I often start with what the imagery might be, but then designing the piece of furniture might dictate something else happening. So it's going back and forth between the surface design and the three-dimensional design. So I don't have any real particular, to some degree, the painterly things are all the same, you know, so that if I'm trying to get super realistic, it doesn't matter if it's a wine glass or a portrait.
Right. Yeah, you're blending of the 2D world and 3D world is just really fascinating. It's incredible. I especially love the cabinet with the cigar and the wine glasses and the shadows, and it's just so painterly. Really, really lovely.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. And we're going to turn our eyes to Mr. Jay Stanger. And I'll talk a little bit about Jay, and then we'll go through a few of his pieces as well, and then have some time for Q&A. For nearly 5 decades, Jay Stanger has been creating functional artwork, both in his furniture design and architectural sculpture. Stanger's work has broken the barriers between fine art and craft. The result is a unique synthesis of geometry, movement, color, and emotion. In the mid-1970s, Jay Stanger attended the Rochester Institute of Technology, where he studied industrial printing management. Following graduation, he began a career in furniture making, first under the tutelage of renowned Danish-born furniture maker Taj Fried, and later with David Powell at Leeds Design Workshop in East Hampton, Massachusetts. Stanger furthered his career at Boston University's program in artisanry under Jerry Osgood and Alphonse Mattia. Stanger has since become known for his use of bold colors and geometric shapes, as evidenced in the tour de force from Fuller Craft Museum's permanent collection, Arched and Animated.
As you can see, I knew SIlas when he was considerably younger. I think I made this when I was still in my 20s, and SIlas did the marquetry work.
Wow.
And it might have been the first piece that I made that for a show. And the show was for springtime. And it's a liquor cabinet with a wine storage facility. And as Groucho Marx rolls over to his cigar, the cigar is actually a corkscrew. And the glasses and the house the house holds the glasses and the liquor, and all the mixology equipment is in the picket fence. But I thought it was important to show how long we really have known each other. And it's been a great ride for the two of us. SIlas has been a really good friend and a mentor. I fortunately got to watch him go through a lot of ways to form a business in furniture making. He would go to tent shows. He would go, where was that? You'd go to Rhinebeck, New York and do those shows. We'd go hang out. So I could, to some extent, let him lead the way and make the mistakes, and then try and do my work to cash in after I saw which way he was going. Anyway, this piece ended up, I think, because of the glasses, owned by an eye surgeon. And I think it's in the Berkshires right now.
Wow. What about, how early was this piece, Jay?
Very
do you
early.
remember?
I mean,
yeah.
it probably
70.
was in 83.
Okay.
I think I had it at the Clark Museum with Meredith Moses, who was very supportive of my work and a good salesperson. One thing that I've mentioned to you and to Beth is that SIlas and I were not academic people. We didn't teach much, so we really ran furniture businesses. And to us, it was like a lot of other businesses. It's a treadmill. There was no paycheck coming from a college. So we had to produce.
Tell us a little bit about this piece as well.
Well, this piece is basically what I wanted to do with my life, which is make a three-dimensional sculptural object that fit the ergonomics of a body. So you didn't really know where the sculpture ended and where the seating began. And when you sat in the piece, you'd be comfortable. And you also had the ability, since I work in aluminum, stainless steel, wood, you'd have different textures and different temperatures. So as your hand glides around the piece, the wood feels kind of like a baby's butt, soft, smooth. The aluminum's ground very coarsely, and it was cold. So I really look at what we do as interactive art a lot more than a screen would be interactive art. I think furniture is the ultimate in interactive art, and that's really why I wanted to go in that direction, because you actually, everything that we have fabricated, people actually engage in doing something with. And there's also a musicality to that piece. So this is a coffee table that was built not too long after, maybe 10 years later. We were fortunate enough when we were still had our studio in Charlestown to have the Renwick Alliance come by quite a bit from the Smithsonian, and we were invited out to dinner, my wife Nancy and I. We had not been married yet, and one couple asked us what we were doing for our honeymoon, and we had zero money. So we told them we were going to go to the Cape for the weekend, and they said they were renting a villa in Florence, Italy, and we should go there.
Wow.
So we returned our wedding gifts and took that money and went to Italy. And while we were in Italy, we're up at Lake Bellagio, and we saw these little marquetry boxes, and the veneer was beautiful. The craftsmanship wasn't great, but we asked where the veneer came from, and we ended up in the middle of the industrial zone in Cantu, where I started buying all these dyed veneers, and still do. I bought some last month.
Wow. Is that one of the only places that you can acquire that, or is it really the best place to get it?
As I know, it's the only place that has this variation of woods materials.
Wow.
And as SIlas and I may discuss later on, the thickness of the veneers we work with, especially these veneers, is about the thickness of 3 sheets of paper. So if you sneeze while you're sanding, you make the piece again.
Wow. Yeah.
I've always integrated aluminum in my work. I especially with anodizing, it had that kind of translucent quality like wood did.
Oh, let me back up here.
Yep.
Let's see. I'm going to get back to where we started here. A little snafu on the, there we go.
There you go.
So this is I was asked to do a railing for a house in Weston, Massachusetts. And at the top of the stairs, I had previously done 5,000 square feet of cast epoxy inlay in a condominium in Washington, D.C., which I was on my hands and knees for months doing. And this piece is a 10-foot diameter piece of Purple Heart. And the epoxy that I use expands and contracts with the wood so it doesn't crack, and it's inlaid about 1/2 inch in. I have to cast clear so that a dye doesn't bleed out of the lines that I want it to go into. And each color, you have to put a color in, then route the next channel, put the next color in. So it's an extensive process. I made this in my shop and then applied it to a piece of plywood and dropped it in their floor and cast epoxy around the perimeter of it.
Wow. Amazing.
So I've done a lot of installation work as well. This is also epoxy.
Great desk.
And I liked this piece because if I was back in elementary school, which was probably one of my least effective parts of life, I would have liked to have had this desk to play with while I wasn't paying attention.
Oh, wow. Tell us about this.
This is one of the more exciting things I've ever made. I've been to a lot of people's homes who collect all kinds of things. They'll collect jewelry, glass, paintings, ceramics, and all of this stuff was displayed except for the jewelry. And the jewelry was usually kept in these white cardboard boxes in a closet. And when somebody wanted to find a piece of jewelry to wear to a show or something, they'd have to go through this maze of boxes. So wow. It came to my attention that if I created a container that would hold every type of jewelry at once, then I would make their life easier and I would be able to finance my children's life better. So I came up with this design and I engineered this hinge to make the cylindrical cabinets swirl around without having to take up any more space than they actually took up. And then the pods that held necklaces could come out so you could see the necklace. And on the left-hand side of this, the bracelet that was for bracelets, above was for rings. There was, in the upper right-hand corner, there was a place to put, if you were gonna go out for the night, you could assemble your earrings and your necklace and your jewelry and have it ready. And then there were places to put hanging necklaces, and there's perforated aluminum so you could put studs through it and hang your earrings too. So I tried to cover every possible thing, as well as make a sculptural object.
It's amazing.
So this is the same person who owned the last piece owns this. And I've worked for Chris Rifkin pretty much for 8 years in a row once I started this job. And this is this is her bedroom door. It's 9 feet 6 inches high and 3 feet across. And it's in her gallery, which is 60 feet long and 13 feet deep. So the room was very tight feeling. So the concept of this piece was to create as much space looking through the door as possible.
Yeah, there's such great perspective and depth in that piece, yes. Jay. It really goes on forever with your eyes drawn really far in. It's great.
The horizontal pink piece halfway through on the lower part is actually the door handle and knob. I made all the hardware for this. I made the casing. I made the hinges. So everything that's there, and the door weighed hundreds of pounds. So we had to fabricate some very substantial hinges. I have all the mill working equipment. And when I finished this piece, Chris asked me to build a cabinet to hold her artwork on that wall. And I spent 5 years building the cabinet to your right. And it goes to the left. It was 56 feet long and 9 feet high. So
it's amazing. I've seen it. It's quite an accomplishment. And where is this piece, Jay?
This is in a house in Weston, which was a financial advisor. I guess he invested for a very specific group of people. He used to work for Fidelity, and he built a 36,000 square foot home. And Michael Eisner was one of his clients, and in the basement, he had Disney come and build a spaceship for his children.
Jeez, wow.
So
this is great addition.
Yeah, this railing is 124 feet long. I had 10 full-time employees working on it for 23 months. And I had to make sure that it would go to code. And so I ended up having to, part of the problem with making furniture is that if someone's going to run into it or you could sit on it, you need to make it strong enough for that to happen. And this, to pass code, had to take 250 pounds, 250 pounds at 5 miles an hour thrust into it. And it couldn't have a space more than 4 inches. We actually had a baby's head we would pass around the shop to see if it could fit through any of the gaps. So it would be
oh my goodness. This great piece.
We refabricated his house in my shop. I put a few drawings in here so you could see the sketches all the way to the left, how they translate from drawing to finished piece. And this client in New York had a relatively small penthouse. And as I built this place, they started buying more penthouses. So they connected one to the next. But the goal here was that they wanted a table with a leaf, but they didn't want to have to put the leaf away. So I made it so it could stand as a painting on its own. And when it was in the table, there was a sculpture on the wall that would hold the leaf.
That's amazing. Wow.
This is 2 of the chairs that go to that table. One's from the back, one's from the front. And I took the design elements that were the marquetry work and brought them into 3 dimension to create this. And it's also the way that I choose to, like this piece, make a sculpture out of the whole object. This is in Chicago in a high rise. And one of my least brilliant things that I did was this table's 9 feet long and 5 feet across, and it weighs a ton. And when we rolled it in on dollies, we damaged their floor and had to refinish their floor after it took me 10 hours to assemble there. So mistakes were made.
It's a weighty piece.
Yes.
And I think we have a couple more before we break for some questions.
Yeah, this is just another really big, this is a 7-foot high jewelry cabinet. It's out in California somewhere. And a lot of the people who would go to openings would get so decked out and so arty. I decided that it was comical at some point, and I brought them to my work. So a lot of these are all about people at openings.
That's great.
This is just a desk that I like. It's aluminum and wood, and it's made for a brain surgeon who lives in Georgia. Most of the work that we've seen, I'd say a little bit more than 50% is commissioned at this point. But I would try and make 20 pieces, 25 pieces a year and do a show every year for close to 35 years.
Wow. That's quite a grind to keep that up.
Yeah. This was one of the most complicated things I've ever made. What I did on the left with the drawings was to show that I usually do 5 to 7 drawings for a commission. And then I tell the client that if they like the marquetry work on one drawing and the structure of another drawing, we can mix and match. So this is actually a collaboration of the top and second drawings. And these pieces are twisted and tapered in every direction. So they bend in ways that wood can't bend. And I've figured out a way to taper things so they wouldn't be so heavy when you were there. And
Wow.
So they wouldn't be damaged when they were being used. There's an inlaid piece of aluminum at the footrest.
Brilliant.
And this is the last piece. And I unexpectedly sold a very large chair to someone through a show that Chris Rifkin also put together at the South Shore Art Center. Mm-hmm. And she wanted an end table to go with it. So I did a series of designs for that. And this is really a sculpture with the top.
It's wonderful. Thank you, Jay. And I have to say, I've never seen a more concrete expression of an artist's heart and soul of their work. I know Jay a little bit, and I think the combination of this just finely, beautifully crafted pieces with lots going on with color and shape is just who you are. I love that. It so clearly comes through, and it's just really beautiful. Part of what we do with Collection Spotlight is ask our artists to choose one of their favorite pieces from our collection. And I think the most interesting thing with Jay and SIlas is that neither one of them chose furniture. So I'm going to let you chat about the pieces that you've chosen. I'm going to share my screen again and pull them up and why you've chosen them. So here is SIlas's favorite piece. If you'd like to speak a little bit about that.
I'd be happy to talk about this piece because I really like it. What I liked about this artist's particular work is it's three-dimensional and it's weird, and it's weirdly three-dimensional. It's a figure with 3 legs to it, and that intrigued me. And then on top of that, he has this remarkable decorative painting on top. And I think that one thing that particularly intrigues me about it is I can't fathom what goes on in this guy's mind. And I think that's exciting. And I hope that people will look at that the same way. So you see the 3 legs that he's joined together. And I also have to say, I think it's beautifully crafted. I think that the sculptural qualities of it are fine. So if you strip the decoration off of it, it would be an interesting piece, just, I guess, basically because of the 3 legs. And then look at what he's done with the painting on the surface. I just think it's very cool. And I'll throw this in about Jay. I don't know how this guy's mind works, and I don't know how Jay's mind works either. I can't figure it out.
Well, you've had as long to figure it out as I have, and I don't know either.
Thank you, SIlas. Jay, can you tell us a little bit about why you chose this piece?
Well, I used to show with Robin back when I was in my 20s, and I've always been attracted to her work. I've seen it in all different proportions. It's glass and gold, this piece. I kind of like that she mummifies people to some extent, and that she reproportions people. And she's uses the same form a lot, but she tells a different story with a similar form of person all the time. And there's something about the size of the structure of the person and the petite quality of the head that to me lets the body take over and let the mind rest a little bit, which no one could use more than me.
That's lovely. Well, thank you. Thank you both for sharing that. Let's see if we have any questions in the chat. So you've both been in this field for decades. And can you share with us how you've seen contemporary craft evolve over the years?
Take it, Jag. You start.
Boy, I was hoping you would. You know, our business has changed considerably from when SIlas was making beautiful jewelry boxes to where we got to do installations and large sculptural pieces. The window was open for us early on because there were a lot of collectors from Washington and Maryland that kind of supported us early on. SIlas got together with a gallery in New York early on. And as time kind of grew, people's fascination with glass really grew. There's a strong organization for ceramics in the country. There's a developing organization for wood in the country. Our business has really is more difficult in a way because the objects are so large. So SIlas and I have had a lot of conversations about what we're going to do next, because to make furniture, you could end up with a lot of furniture that your children would have to de-access somehow. So it's a little hard. The galleries that sell what we make pretty much don't exist at this moment. So what I've been doing recently is doing a lot of restoration work. My first job was doing antique restoration, and now I'm doing antique restoration of my own pieces. So I'm restoring desks that I've made 30 years ago, and I chair that Adirondack chair with a croquet set, which is going to be in a show at the museum in a year or so.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that.
So our business has evolved in a bit of a negative way, that the outlets are less. And I think once the auction houses took over, it really changed a lot.
Sure. Jay, a question just came in the chat for you. Paul Fleischman says, your work is extraordinary. Is there any particular type of furniture you most enjoy making?
I would say anything to sit in. I find that is the most interactive piece of furniture to make. So when you can sit in something and be wrapped and feel it and touch it all the time, I love to make seating objects. I have a very specific set of proportions that I use that make them comfortable as well as unusual looking. And just like a painter needs to fit within some picture frame, furniture makers need to fit within the human proportion.
Excellent. How have you both, you know, this is a question I'm sure people ask you probably all the time, how you've dealt with this last year with the pandemic, and how has it impacted your practice? SIlas, you want to take that?
You know, I think most craftspeople, at least at this level, are pretty solitary people, and so it didn't necessarily make much difference to me. I go to the. I've had kind of the same routine of going to the studio and to hang with.
Sure. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think that we tend to spend most of our time alone. And occasionally we'll call each other and commiserate about being alone. I really haven't found that much of a difference either. I walk over from my house to my studio and just grind away. I find, you know, the time when I'm not working is the time that's more complicated because you're afraid to do anything.
Right. Question just came in for SIlas, and then I have a few questions of my own, a la James Lipton style. What we usually like to do with Collection Spotlight is ask 5 spotlight questions. Jay, maybe you can start. When did you first realize you wanted to become an artist?
Well, I saw when I was studying printing at Rochester, I saw guys making furniture. They have a really good studio furniture program there. But I made my first piece of furniture when I was in 5th grade with my 4th grade teacher.
Wow.
I did a lot of darkroom work back then, and my teacher at the time owned a summer camp, and I went and did some work for him down there. And then I used to teach woodworking down there, and he's in his mid to late 80s, and we're still close.
Wow, that's a great history.
I would say that he started me to do this.
Wow.
I think I'm back, Denise. Am I back?
You are. So
okay.
Would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I know the question. It's about
great.
drawing. And
all right. Yeah.
I think I draw pretty well within my own context. And the context is something that is going to be translated into marquetry. So when I do the marquetry work, I just use a pencil, black and white. I don't try to do color because the wood isn't necessarily going to be the same as whatever I'd attempt. So no, my drawings are strictly for furniture. So I don't do things to put on a wall, and I don't paint.
Interesting. So SIlas, when did you first realize you wanted to become an artist?
Yeah, I think it was when I realized I didn't want to be an architect.
It's great to know what you don't want to do.
That I didn't want to go on to school. I knew that. And it was going to be another 3 years to be able to have enough schooling to get a license in architecture. And I wanted some sort of an alternative lifestyle. And so working with my hands seemed romantic. And I thought, okay, I'd like to pursue that. I knew nothing about any medium. And I suppose it could have been clay or jewelry or glass, but for whatever reason, I gravitated to wood, and here I am, almost 50 years later.
Well, it's a great answer. Romance wins out all the time, right?
Yeah.
So I'd like to ask you both my second question of my 5 spotlight questions. What is your best advice for those starting a career in the arts, especially now in this time? Who would like to take that one first?
Let me start, Jay.
Go right ahead.
I think about this a lot. Am I frozen again? There we go. If I were to start today, I would try to develop some computer skills to be able to draw on the computer, to render things. And I feel like I'm too far along to old dog, new trick. I just am not going to do that. And but boy, I wish I could. And I think that am I on or not? I can't tell if I'm being heard.
Yes, you are. Yeah, we can hear you fine.
I can't tell if, well, I think that a lot of people are able to do some really cool stuff using computer technology, CNC machines, lasers, 3-dimensional printing, and so on and so forth. And I would tell anyone starting today that get the mix of both. Get some hand skills in your craft work, but tie that in also with some computer technology. Good
piece of advice. Jay, what would be your best advice for someone starting their career in the arts?
I think it's a tough time. We were very lucky that we kind of hit some sweet spot when we started. I think that different mediums are still really popular, but I guess that more design is taught than actual one-of-a-kind pieces in our field still. At this point, but I do listen to National Public Radio a lot, and I don't understand what this guy made, but he sold something that was digital for, and he's in his 20s, for close to $50 million. And it's a painting that he can continually change and somebody owns, but it's also in the public, which is amazing to me. So a lot of people can see this object online all the time, but one person owns it. And it's, as Silas said, old dog, new trick. It's way beyond my comprehension level how this works, even after listening to him talk for an hour.
Wow. Next question is, what other artists would you like to have worked with? Anybody in history?
Well,
living or past?
I was fortunate enough to ruin a few of pieces of Silas's.
I know you guys like working together, but who else?
But you know, I think Salvador Dali would have been pretty interesting. I've always liked to look at Kandinsky's work. You know, Salvador Dali was a businessman too. He designed the Michelin Man. So I think that people who expressed themselves and then took the art as a business too. And Lino Tig, I really don't know how to pronounce his last name, but the glass artist, he's in his 80s. I've met him several times. I love his work. And I almost picked one of his pieces for this. Thing. But he's a really interesting fellow to would have learned from as well.
Good choices. How about you, Silas?
You know, I had the heads up on what the question was, and I actually couldn't obviously come up with something, because collaboration is such a tough thing in the arts, because as we alluded earlier, we're solitary creatures. And so it takes a special personality to be willing to accede to someone else's vision. But that's good. I mean, if you can do it, that's fine. I'm not sure that I'm the best at that. And I hope that just doesn't sound too self-serving and egotistical that
not at all.
Do that with other people.
It sounds honest.
Thought it might be interesting.
I think it is, but that's who you are. And that's why I like you.
That's great. What is the most important tool in your studio? What is the tool that you can't live without in your studio?
Well, my favorite tool to use is a Nicholson 50 rasp.
Wow, that's specific.
But other than that, I have a lot of measuring equipment. But I like to work with my hand tools. I've been working with power tools for, 40, almost 50 years, and I'm still very afraid of all of them. So they don't care what you do.
No, good reasoning behind that. Silas, what is a tool that you can't live without in your studio?
I think most woodworkers would say, they're number 5 plane or something like that, or a special chisel or whatever. The tool that I use virtually every day is my scroll saw. It's a little tiny wire saw, and it just dances up and down kind of like a sewing machine. And that's what I cut all the marquetry on. And that's my go-to technique. And so therefore I would really struggle without that.
Wow. Is that a hand tool, Silas, or?
It's an electrified machine, but it's sort of based on the motion of a hand tool.
Sure.
But someday it's going to be a laser.
Well, and Silas, there was no other option for you. I mean, you're married to Linda and to that machine.
So last question of the afternoon, and it's a deep one, a heavy one. What would you like your legacy to be? Who wants to go first?
I'll give it a go.
Go ahead.
Okay.
I hope that my pieces of furniture will be seen long into the future, and that people will admire the craftsmanship and the skill that it took to build them. And as it is when I go into a museum and see things that were made in, say, the 18th century or something or other, that rest in awe of those people who built that stuff.
With a lot less equipment than we have.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I think
that will happen with your work, SIlas.
Yeah, I think that's
There's
pretty
no
much
doubt.
guaranteed, Silas. Jay, what about you? What would you like your legacy to be?
Well, I certainly would like that. But I think the thing that I'm probably happiest about is I've had a lot of employees, and some of them who have been troubled when I met them, and they've gone on to live really productive lives, and they're close to me still.
That's wonderful.
I feel like I've done a lot of things for people that could have gone in other directions.
That's wonderful. Yep. Well, thank you both. This has been really a lot of fun. And I love that you were both here together and have worked together for so long. I'd like to thank everyone for coming. And please make sure to sign up for all the incredible virtual museum programs that we have coming up. Our next collection spotlight on May 12th is Pussy Hat co-founder and Welcome Blanket founder, Jana Zwyman. And on June 16th, we'll welcome ceramics superstar Paul Briggs to the program. And please sign up for these and all of the other vibrant programs we have available online at fullercraft.org. Again, it was just so much fun to have you here, Silas and Jay, together, and great to see everyone. And this is our version of in person now, right? Wonderful to see you and everyone else. Thanks for joining us. It was a lot of fun. Thanks, Jay and Silas.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
See you, Silas.
Bye-bye.